Hi, friends. Hello, the world. Welcome back to this episode of Complaint Free Life. And with me, I have my wonderful guest, Helmut Buss, for the second time. Helmut, I think you were my first ever guest on this podcast when I started doing it. So now, welcome back again. And this time, we've discussed talking about transition, especially I guess that we want to be talking about is in terms of how one prepares for transition, considering so many uh, so many options, but also so many ways of going through this process. And then the other part is to talk about now that we have arrived at the transition, we've arrived at the goal that we wanted, how do we design from there on? So these are the two angles of transition that we're talking about. So first, maybe Helmut, just to give a bit of a context and background to people so that they understand what we're talking about, what type of transition we're talking about, and how was the process before and then after.
Okay. Yeah, sounds great to be with you here and with your listeners also. And when we are talking about transition today, we are talking about a transition from kind of organized work, in this case in UNHCR, to kind of the next chapter in life. Some call it retirement. I always had a little bit of a problem with that word. You also say, pension and pensionnaire, and it's almost kind of old. It's not so interesting. There's not a lot of life in those terms for me. So I, in conversations with others, so this is not now my idea, I felt that the term graduation is much easier for me to deal with in that situation, because I feel, like a graduation from university, for me, it's kind of graduation now from this professional, more organized life and work, and using everything that I had the privilege also to take with me and to learn during that life into the kind of the next phase. So the term graduation resonates a lot more with me. And it is a process, I think, that poses a number of challenges, of course. And many people I spoke to, and I have now recently also spoken to, say they envy me for this. Some say I can't do it because I don't have a plan for after, or they say I can't do it because I need the money and I have children, for example, that are still in school age. So for me, the situation was a little bit different because we have two adult daughters that they are some on their own. And so I had the privilege to really decide when I want to leave that organized work. And I took time to prepare for it. I also had the privilege to work, to have a professional life that gave me a lot of areas of opportunity of learning. And also by nature, I'm a curious person and I am kind of a lifelong learner. And I think those are skills or interests that prepare also for such a move.
Yeah, absolutely. So I like the term graduation. Also, it sounds wonderful. So whenever we're graduating, I guess one thing that we could look at is what was the most challenging part of graduating? I mean, usually in university terms, we know it's exam, right? We don't know what grade we're going to get or how we're going to do after graduating, whether we're going to be successful or not. So these are the questions that naturally come up. In your case, Helmut, what was the challenging part of that graduation process?
I think there are a number of challenges that I found for myself. One, very practically speaking, I'm in here in a kind of comfortable place where I talk freely. one is, of course, also the financial part of it, and to
Yeah.
see, how will life after that be, then with full taxation, depending which country you are in. So I, of course, wondered, how will all of that work out? So that was, I felt, something that I spent quite some time on. I found that challenging also to say, okay, I mean, I don't know how it is for others. For me, it also means to now also live with financially a little bit less. And so to get prepared for that. And I think for me, that was important to address that, and to, for, which sounds perhaps a little bit strange for others, but for the first time, really to go down and see, okay, what are my expenses? Where do I want to spend money? Where not? So that's one space. I think the other was, how do I deal with the kind of loss of privilege? Many things happened at work, which I was then perhaps not so attentive anymore about. You have a certain position, people are connecting with you because of that position to some extent. And so you had a certain kind of quote unquote importance. And I was also wondering, what would that mean then? How do I deal with that? So these were two things that I looked at before in terms of specific challenges. Now, what I have not yet spoken about so much is what my reason was also for a little bit earlier retiring and the plans. So, of course, that red thread of a plan that I had and have, that helped me, and that was perhaps also reducing a little bit the challenges. I may also add, I said, there's one thing that is part of me, and that is a good portion of curiosity and optimism. And again, I think for others, this looks differently. So these are ingredients, I think, that helped me also to go through that. I mean, if I would give kind of not advice, but share, I think it's definitely important to look at the financial side of things, my responsibilities vis-a-vis family and others. So can I do it? How can I do it? Or how do I have to perhaps change or adapt a little bit the lifestyle if I go? And once you do that, I think then the room of flexibility increases, because I could have gone longer. So in a sense, it's a year earlier, but I decided to stop earlier, also because I felt I wanted to use my energies also still for other things and control a little bit this transition myself.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is also resonating with me, because when I was transitioning, I also had that thought of the financial part, and of course, having that certain savings enough for you to live by before starting something else, right? And I think in my case, what was interesting is that whenever I was thinking about finances, I had a lot of fears around it. Like, okay, what if I won't be able to have enough until whatever the amount of time, or what if whatever I'm starting off is not going to work out and pay off and all this stuff. And later on, I realized that those fears were a part of the process, meaning I couldn't have done it any other way. And if I just listened to those fears and didn't go and do what I wanted to do, I think I wouldn't have achieved, or I wouldn't have honored my desires. And therefore, I fear that I would have had more problems staying and doing things just because I feared not to pursue my dream, right? So that's why I just want to, I guess, say to all listeners that fear of not working out, fear of not having enough money, all of these are there. It's going to be part of it. And whether you want to listen to that or not, how you want to make it mean and what those fears are telling you in terms of how much money you really need to have in order to continue pursuing what you want. I think we just want to make it transparent. I guess what
Yeah.
I'm saying is that, so that don't be afraid of that fear. It's natural, it's going to come over. But how
Yeah.
you deal with it is what determines in
Yeah.
the end.
Yeah, I would agree with that very much, Asel. And I think the fear is normal, is natural, helps us actually also
Yeah,
to go a little bit deeper, to
yeah,
feel touched by all of that.
yeah.
And I think, you know, I need to recognize that to some extent I'm talking about luxury problems, you know, because I mean, we do have a privilege of when we have had work for so long in an institution that also
Yeah,
takes care of us afterwards.
yeah,
And frankly, when I talk to some, I have three brothers, and when I talk to them, I better not talk to them about this because they are in different situations. What is
mm,
helpful in this process is really also to have friends, family to talk, and
yeah,
at least that was helpful for me.
yeah.
And one important event that I followed a few years ago was what was called a legacy retreat.
Mm,
And it was kind of 4 or 5 years ago. And I participated in an event where some 20 other participants from all corners of the world, from all professions, came together for a long weekend to look at, you know, what are my values? What is my purpose in life? What is it that I want to, quote unquote, leave behind, focus on? And art, music, meditation, play, everything was used to generate this. And I think what I want to say, it is important, or it is very helpful when you go through these transition processes or through life in general, to having clarified this for yourself on in terms of purpose, who are you, who is your inner leader, what is your life purpose.
yeah,
So that was a strong developed into a strong platform for me to
mm,
also go through this transition with confidence.
yeah, absolutely. And what I love about Helmut, what you're saying, that, having this ability to say that these are the aspects I need to look at, to feel like you are in control and you are in charge of this process, right? So it's not like everything is going to just work out in whatever way and then you are just flowing through, but rather being conscious and aware, like you're saying, have that platform and say for yourself, this is how I'm going to do it. This is the time frame in which I'm going to do it. These are the ways I'm going to do it. I have my support systems that I have, and that support system will be there, checking
Mm,
with me and also discussing things. So I
yeah.
think that's a wonderful way of looking at it, rather than having this very ad hoc or disorganized way of, okay, let's just see.
Yeah, I think as well, there are two other components. I mean, I have had a professional coach for many years.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Also to help me to get more access to my skills, who I am, and so more as a life accompanying partner, in a way, a thinking
Yeah.
partner. And I think that process generated a lot of reflection and also strengths and ability and skills to go through this process. And then later, because of that, I decided also to do coaching training myself. And that then again developed more curiosity to go deeper and to see, okay, what in myself do I want to bring more to the surface? So one of
Mm.
those elements was I'm a very kind of structured and rules-oriented person. And I said, you know, there are other things that I want to discover. My wife is completely different. So a journey started, which I call from the red traffic light
Mm.
to the red clown nose.
Mm.
Because we decided then, because of this curiosity about the clown spirit, to go with my wife for 6 months into a clown course. And we did that. for this year, actually, since May. And the reason why I mention it is also because for me, that was a fantastic journey into myself, getting out of the head and
Yeah.
trying to see how can I discover myself more emotions, how can I connect more with that, and with all of that, perhaps also surprise myself with new ideas that are coming out of that process, which is kind of not this only in the head and sometimes very stuck process in this clouded brain space. So I want to share that also with the listeners too, and that can happen in different ways. I mean, music, other things. So that was for me a discovery that also helps me now to in accompanying also others to develop that curiosity and sometimes a different approach to addressing a problem, not only in the head, but also perhaps through other means.
Absolutely.
Humor, for example.
Yes, absolutely. So I think for me, what I'm also observing more and more is that people are having now audacity, I guess, to say, I want to make decisions out of feelings. You know, I've done decisions out of head for many years, and that brought us to good places, and we don't lie, and that was amazing. But we've also learned to trust that our emotions, our feelings are also telling us that now we want to do this way, right? Now we want to do things differently. Now we want to do things because we feel like doing it and not just because it's the right thing to do or because it's how it's supposed to be. And therefore, I love that different types of approaches to looking at how I've always made decisions in my life. And in the past, this is how my approach was. And now I may also take a different approach. And that's why I'm highly recommending that whenever you are transitioning and making decisions, because when we're transitioning, we make a lot of decisions, obviously. And in those decisions, listen to your feelings. And like you're saying, listen to what's coming up from within you and then see what they're telling you. And some of them will be very scary. I'm not gonna lie. When I listen to what comes up from within me, sometimes it's scary, but it doesn't mean that it's bad or good. It just means that we get curious and find out why are we having this? Why are we having these feelings, right? And what do we want to do with them? And I think having that confidence, the courage to say, this is how I'm gonna go.
Absolutely. And I think it is really a huge treasure box, the feelings. The challenges, like me, I come from education, culture, home, where feelings were not really spoken about so much. So that has, luckily, I mean, this has changed in our world, but it's still a challenge for many. I come from a school, and still today people come and say, I don't talk about feelings, it's not professional. And there we are as human beings, full of feelings. Most of our decisions are taken from the head down. So only very little is actually happening here. Most of the decisions are driven by the rest of the body. And if we don't know that rest, or don't have literacy to see, also again in the clown course, expressing first, what is a feeling? Of course, always individually, then, arrogance, fear, express fear. How do you express fear? So you get an opportunity to discover that and allow yourself also to go extreme, because clowning is about exaggerating. And sometimes that releases again and energies and powers that help to somewhat get a better connection with that feeling. So I just to support, I mean, what you are saying, I think if we want to get more confident, get strong, work on and live on stronger platforms in life, the opportunity to connect with feelings is really, really important.
Absolutely, yes. So now we're talking about making decisions, and transition is happening. We're starting a somewhat new life or a different life
Mm-hmm.
than before. And I remember also myself when I finished my work with UNHCR, and then I had all this freedom and I could do anything, but I could also do nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So then the questions start becoming like, okay, what's worth doing, or what's worth of my value of time? How do I value time? How do I design this freedom that I now have? How was that process for you? Tell us.
Yeah, I want to share a few insights or what
Mm-hmm,
is important for me. My previous coach gave me one kind of advice. Coaching is not so much about advice, but
mm-hmm,
perhaps insight. And
mm-hmm,
she said, listen, after retirement, when you take decisions about what you want to do,
mm-hmm,
think about the following. Um, Everything that is proposed to you immediately or so is a potential obstacle on the way what you want to really do. So
mm,
in a way, be attentive, so that not out of a need that you feel, oh God, yeah, great, somebody's asking that I do something. You really always see, is it connected with what I want to do? And I think most importantly, even take a complete time out. And I can also talk to that for a minute after that. But the other thing is, so everything that you are not saying yes to is a door, a possible door to going to what you really want to do. And that for me was a helpful direction. Now, I had initially planned to retire at the end of last year and wanted to go on a 3 months hike through Germany,
mm-hmm,
where the wall was between east and west, and there's a
mm-hmm.
track, and it's a 3 months track, and I wanted to do that immediately after retirement. Now, I need to postpone that until next year. I will do it next year. I can only say, I think also what I hear from others, it is really important not to, or I want to rephrase this. There is an opportunity to interrupt really, and
Yeah.
to not do anything, and to give it time. Some people get into gardening, some people go on a big trip. A good friend of mine says, Helmut, you're already getting so busy again. I am just enjoying life. And so it's I think this is important. Then another one, what I find a certain routine. So I have a routine that I started 1 or 2 years ago, which is helping me now, and that I call the morning walk. So I live, in a beautiful country called Switzerland, perhaps not as beautiful as Kyrgyzstan, but the mountains and the nature are really breathtaking. And I live in a place where I have easy access to nature. So every morning I go on a morning walk for 40 minutes. And it is a routine that helps me start the day. It is not so much the physical walk. It's not, for losing weight or so. It is more to welcome, in a way, life and the day. And because every day starts differently with the clouds or the sun or the smell or everything. So what I want to say is, I think it helps me to have this routine. And so the first hour is really spent with that morning walk and some meditation around that. So I think that is also helpful when getting into this new phase. You know what? I was sitting there in the first few weeks and I said, what have I actually achieved today or during the week? So saw myself, so much all over, everything, cleaning up, doing this little thing, that writing that letter, making that phone call, all the things that I felt are important that I didn't take the time to do before, reading the newspaper, starting to read a book, but it was not very organized. I felt, So I am trying now to at least keep a little bit track and say, this is what has happened. And so I think that's also something that I want to share. Yeah, I think my red thread is my coaching practice. And I started that about a year ago. I'm now going through certification. And that means automatically that I have a good number of people that I'm talking to every day. And that I find inspiring and energizing. So that is how it worked for me. So there was not really a complete interruption. There was something that I almost like a rope or so that I held to. And again, this may be all very different for others. I get more time. Well, I get more time. I mean, I'm also asked to spend more time to clean the house, to do some cooking, to deal with the garden, and something where I was not very present in the past. And but that is also something that I see now less as a task and more almost like a nice new kind of adventure to get into that.
Yeah, very nice, very nice. I think for me was also that the beginning was a lot of experimenting. And I think I cannot stress enough how much we really need to experiment to see what works in our new freedom of having all this time to decide what to do in them. And I also realized the other thing is that having that one focus always helps. And like you were saying, right, in your case and also in my case, having the clients or coaching people in general, or directing your energy to one thing being the highlight of those days, I think is still for me was helpful to say, okay, this is the focus, and then everything else I can experiment around it and then see what works for me and what doesn't. The other thing I realized also that I was so much set up on 9 to 5 work type of mentality, and deconstructing that, or rather deprogramming that, took time, because my brain was immediately, okay, if you don't do anything within 9 to 5, you're not productive or you're not efficient or whatever it is that my brain comes up with. And then to say that that's not the purpose I'm going for. In other words, I'm not trying to design my life according to how productive I can be or how efficient I can be, but rather I'm designing it around how I want to serve, how I want to discover my life, and how I want to do it in a way that time is not as such an issue anymore, like it used to be in the past, right? In the past, I used to always think, okay, I don't have time for this, I don't have time for that. And now I didn't want to look at time as a scarcity anymore, but rather abundance, in wanting to design life out of abundance. So if I have everything I need, I have all the time in the world I have. So how do I want to do then?
Yeah.
And then switching that mindset, I think for me took time, like I don't know, 6 months or more. But then once I realized that I can actually live in that abundance, I can also do so many things without really tracking or without really wanting to feel like I have to get things done.
Yeah. I like that concept and that approach. Perhaps connected to that, and I think you're talking about that as well. Rather than talking about time management, to talk about energy management.
Yeah.
Because I meet a lot of people and feel that also for myself, the moment I am not balanced or I'm not in good energy, I have a difficulty with time management.
Yeah.
The moment I am better or well balanced and energized, then things go easier, and then there's less of a problem of time management. So I think that is also a perspective to look at, to see what am I doing to energize myself? What am I doing to get in balance? What do I do basically to get into resonance, into something
Yeah.
that is good, for me, and makes sense. And so I think that's also connected to what you're describing.
Yes, absolutely. For me, energy is always in relation to the feeling and emotions and how they're being generated. And of course, whenever I tell people that, you could be guided by your feelings and emotions in the day, some of the people say, well, what if I want to cry the whole day and my day was lost or whatever. I'm talking about extremes, obviously, but the purpose, I guess, of doing that, leading from energy, leading from emotion, feelings, is simply to say that we are aware of them throughout the day. We are following them in a way without forcing ourselves, right? Without saying, I have to get through, or I have to be productive, I have to force myself and then get things done. And that's the totally the opposite of when you are led by your energy, is when I guess it's a bit like having the internal clock which guides you through the day. For instance, waking up in the morning when you slept well and enough, and then not with the alarm, but then not rushing through the breakfast because you need to do something else, but rather doing that on your own time and then getting to doing other things. So of course it takes, I guess, experiment and also a bit of shifting your mindset a bit, but in the end, when you follow that energy, when you follow that feelings and emotions, in my case at least, I know that I'm not only balanced, but I also am very fulfilled and satisfied in the day. And even when I'm not, even when I'm experiencing negative feelings, I don't think of them as being problems
Yeah.
anymore. I
Yeah.
think of them being, okay, I can manage it. I can go through them as well. And I build this bigger tolerance to getting to know myself and not really getting to doing things and acting on things.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, a number of things that you said about getting into that balance, also seeing, okay, what does this mean for myself? What can I actually
Yeah.
change here? You often see people getting completely into spaces which are not, they cannot change, also
Yeah.
dealing with the past. And I think if I would look also at a lesson in general in life, but especially also for this transition and a longer life, is being connected with the purpose, plus also take care of your health.
Yeah.
I mean, and health is also what you are describing. If I'm constantly in problems or making it difficult for myself. Now, I need to acknowledge some people are in that space. It's not easy to, assume some people are in this situation of transition and are not in good health, or
Yeah.
they are also in periods of their lives that pulls them down.
Yeah.
So if I'm talking as I'm talking, it doesn't mean that this applies to everybody. It's my situation. Other
Yeah.
situations are different and in some ways perhaps more challenging.
Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. And all of what we're discussing here, obviously from our own perspectives, right? What worked or what's working for us. And everyone should, as we said, everyone should experiment what works for them within
Yeah,
their own circumstances that
yeah,
they have. It's just that I guess we want to share with others what other alternatives there are of designing your life. And there's so many possibilities. Obviously, maybe other people have discovered other areas that we haven't considered, but what I'm realizing for myself is that I want to a bit get away from this scarcity mindset of I don't have enough time, or I don't have enough results, or I don't have enough that, or whatever the enough that I'm not having, getting away from that and more moving into, I actually have all the things. It doesn't mean I don't have problems. It just means that I also know how to solve them. And when I move to this mindset, things become a lot less hectic, a lot less hassly, a lot less fixing, but rather looking at it from the wholeness of, yeah, I can do this. I can solve, I can design, I can create, I can do all of this in my own pace.
Yeah, and just to underline your last point, I mean, and I think there, among other things, coaching, I think, is really an opportunity. I also work on the basis that every human being is resourceful and whole, and that is sometimes it is not visible for those people. And if you have someone who you work with and think as a thinking partner to accompany you, then these things come out. So I would also encourage, that it's just my experience. The many people I've worked with, they are full of tools to apply, and it's often they don't see them. They don't see those tools or abilities that they have.
Exactly. And also, once while we are in our own head, it's difficult to look at our own head from a perspective, I mean, from an angle. Sometimes I am able to do that, but other times I don't, especially when I have doubts and fear coming out. And these are the times when I'm needing my coach more, because then I can discuss these and then I can get a different perspective. And I can also get reminded of things that I actually can do all of this, right? So that's why I totally agree, Helmut, that having that external mind who can reflect back of what's happening is so helpful. So any last words before we wrap up, Helmut?
Well, from my viewpoint, I would say to your listeners, be authentic, be courageous, follow, think big in terms of possibilities. And that will then construct kind of the next steps. So there's a huge opportunity of these transitions. In this case, the retirement or graduation transition, and there are other transitions in life. And I think just try to, experiment, try to follow your dream. And many people are very strong, so and creative to do that. So that would be a little bit my message. And really thank you for having me here today.
Yeah, absolutely, Helmut. Thank you so much for sharing your experience. I know that transition is a very interesting topic for many of us at any age, at any life circumstances. So that's why I hope that we've been, helpful in sharing what worked for us, what were the challenges, and challenges are there to solve. So obviously, like Helmut was saying, that follow the dream and the desire, and I think the rest will somehow come together as long as we have that courage to go through, the courage to trust in ourselves, to do what's important for us, right? So thank you so much.
I want to share with you a goodbye. Just to say, this is my other life, and I encourage listeners also to think about these additional parts of themselves. So I just wanted to share that with you as before we close. So.
Excellent, amazing. Thank you so much, Helmut, for being here, for sharing with us your wisdom. And I hope that, the new part of the graduation will be even more exciting. And we'll be in touch, of course. And you will be sharing more of your insights in the future.
Thank you, Estelle, and thank you also for all the listeners who have come in today to listen.
Thank you.
Thank you.